You're standing on a beach in Alaska, watching what you think is just another calm evening. But then you hear it, a sound like an explosion echoing across the water. You look up to see something that shouldn't exist. A wall of water, taller than the Empire State Building, racing toward you at 130 miles per hour. That's level 6, the stuff of nightmares. But tsunamis don't start there. Today, we're breaking down the 6 levels of tsunami destruction, from gentle harbor oscillations that barely register on instruments, all the way up to planet-ending catastrophes that can literally wipe entire civilizations off the map. So let's dive in, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why these 6 levels represent the difference between a minor inconvenience and the literal end of the world. Let's start with level 1, waves that are just 6 inches to 2 feet high. You might be thinking, that's it? My bathtub makes bigger waves. But here's the thing about tsunamis. They're not like normal waves. They're like liquid freight trains carrying unimaginable amounts of energy across entire ocean basins. Just this past July 30th, 2025, a massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula. Within hours, tsunami waves were racing across the Pacific at 500 miles per hour. By the time they reached San Francisco, they were just 1.2 feet high. In Japan, they measured 2 feet in some locations. That doesn't sound scary, right? But here's what most people don't understand about even these baby tsunamis. Jim Pruitt, the harbor master at Half Moon Bay, put it perfectly. It may be only a 12-inch wave, but there is a lot of water behind that wave. It's traveled across the Pacific Ocean, and when the swell hits, it doesn't stop. In 2011, a seemingly harmless 1-foot tsunami from Japan's devastating earthquake caused significant damage to boats docked all the way in Santa Cruz, California, over 5,000 miles away. The wave itself wasn't the problem. It was the massive volume of water behind it, creating unpredictable currents and harbor oscillations that lasted for hours. Imagine you're standing on a dock, watching boats gently bob up and down. Suddenly, the water starts behaving strangely. Instead of the usual 6-hour tidal cycle, water levels start swinging wildly every 10 to 15 minutes. Boats slam into each other. Dock lines snap like rubber bands. What should be a peaceful marina turns into chaos. That's exactly what happened to countless harbors across California during that July event. Even though the waves were barely a foot high, harbor officials still advised everyone to stay out of the water and away from beaches, because level 1 tsunamis have killed people, not from the wave height, but from the deadly currents they create. Level 2 tsunamis pack waves between 3 and 6 feet high. Now we're talking about serious harbor damage and the first real threat to human life. On January 15, 2022, the Hunga Tonga volcanic eruption in the South Pacific created a tsunami that registered over 1 meter at tide gauges across multiple countries. By the time those waves reached California, they were causing $8 to $10 million in damage, including significant destruction in Santa Cruz and Ventura harbors. Chris Xaver was vacationing in Phuket, Thailand, when she experienced what she initially thought was just a water main break. We walked up to the beach, and it was littered with debris. Dead fish were littered all the way up to an open-air restaurant a couple hundred feet from the shoreline. That's when she realized something had gone really wrong. What makes level 2 tsunamis so dangerous isn't just the wave height, it's the duration. Normal storm waves come and go in cycles you can predict. Tsunami waves can pulse in and out of harbors for 12 to 18 hours, each surge carrying enough energy to snap dock lines, crush boats against piers, and create whirlpool-like currents that can pull swimmers under. In 1992, the Cape Mendocino earthquake off the northern California coast generated a level 2 tsunami that reached the shore just 20 minutes after the quake hit. Harbor officials had almost no time to warn boaters or evacuate marinas. The waves weren't tall enough to flood inland areas, but they turned several ports into graveyards of twisted metal and sunken boats. This is the level where we start seeing the first evacuations, the first real economic losses, and the first time people start to understand that tsunamis aren't just big waves. They're moving walls of water with the power to reshape coastlines. Level 3 brings us waves between 6 and 15 feet high, tall enough to flood city blocks and start causing serious structural damage. On December 21, 1812, a massive earthquake struck off the coast of Santa Barbara, California. What followed was the most significant locally generated tsunami in Southern California's recorded history. Witnesses described waves 6 to 10 feet high crashing into the coastline, damaging several small buildings and destroying numerous ships anchored in the harbor. Think about that for a moment. We're talking about waves tall enough to reach the second story of most buildings, carrying enough debris to turn cars into battering rams and telephone poles into spears. In 2007, the Bengkulu earthquake off Sumatra generated a level 3 tsunami with maximum wave heights of 5 feet and run-up heights reaching 16 feet in some locations. The difference between wave height and run-up is crucial here. While the wave itself was only 5 feet tall in open water, when it hit the gradually sloping coastline, it surged inland much higher. Nguyen Duang Jai Sritrakarn, a Thai survivor from a different tsunami, described what it's like to face a wall of water this size. Looking back, I saw a surging wall of water, taller than my home, moving toward shore from far away. I had never seen anything like it. The power of level 3 tsunamis lies not just in their height, but in their persistence. These aren't single waves. They're series of waves that can continue for hours. Each surge carries massive amounts of debris, uprooted trees, destroyed vehicles, chunks of buildings, all becoming projectiles in a liquidized demolition derby. By level 3, we're seeing the first mass evacuations, the first widespread property destruction, and the first time entire communities start to understand they're facing something beyond normal human experience. Before we dive into level 4, the point where tsunamis become regional disasters, I want to ask you something. Are you subscribed to Stormforge? We're working incredibly hard to bring you the most detailed extreme weather content on YouTube, and your subscription helps us research and create these in-depth stories about the most powerful forces on our planet. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more content like this. It really makes a huge difference for our channel. Level 4 tsunamis bring waves between 15 and 50 feet high. We're now talking about regional catastrophes that can affect multiple countries and require international disaster response. On May 22, 1960, the largest earthquake ever recorded, a magnitude 8.6, struck off the coast of Chile. The resulting tsunami reached Chilean shores within just 15 minutes. Waves up to 75 feet high devastated the coastline, killing an estimated 1,500 people in Chile alone. But that was just the beginning. This tsunami traveled across the entire Pacific Ocean at jet airplane speeds. 15 hours later, it slammed into Hilo, Hawaii, with waves still 35 feet high. Then it continued west, eventually reaching Japan with enough power to cause significant damage and loss of life there too. The 1964 Alaskan Good Friday earthquake created what many consider the most devastating level 4 tsunami in U.S. history. Bill Swanson and his wife were anchored in Lituya Bay when the magnitude 9.2 earthquake struck. But this wasn't the famous 1958 event. This was a different disaster entirely. The earthquake generated a 201-foot tsunami in Valdez Inlet that traveled at over 400 miles per hour. When it reached Crescent City, California, it was still 20 feet high. The surge flooded nearly 30 city blocks, killing 11 people and causing millions in damage. Ted Peterson was helping load oil onto a tanker in Seward, Alaska when the quake struck. Within seconds, the waterfront began sliding into the bay, he later recalled. As I ran up the dock toward shore, a tsunami lifted the tanker and rafts of debris onto the dock, knocking me unconscious. Peterson survived, but more than 100 others in Alaska didn't. What makes level 4 tsunamis so devastating is their ability to maintain destructive power across vast distances. We're not talking about local events anymore. These are trans-Pacific disasters that can affect coastlines 10,000 miles away from the source. Level 5 represents the threshold where tsunamis become threats to entire civilizations. Waves between 50 and 167 feet high, hundreds of thousands dead, entire regions underwater for days or weeks. December 26, 2004, Boxing Day, a magnitude 9.1 earthquake struck off the coast of Sumatra at 7:59 a.m. local time. Within minutes, a tsunami was racing across the Indian Ocean at 500 miles per hour, carrying energy equivalent to 23,000 Hiroshima atomic bombs. In some areas of Indonesia, waves reached 167 feet high, taller than a 15-story building, and flooded up to 3 miles inland. Christine Lang was shopping on Koh Phi Phi Island in Thailand when everything changed. A Thai woman holding a bucket of water started screaming, she remembered. People started running inland. We could not see the ocean, so we had absolutely no idea what was going on. Then came the sound. There was a horrific noise, and it sounded to me like airplanes, and I thought maybe the island was being attacked, so I looked to the sky. But the attack was coming from the sea. It was like being tossed in a massive washing machine with the entire contents of the island, Lang later said. I didn't have any sensation except for complete, utter fear. The wave that hit Christine was traveling at about 25 miles per hour when it reached the shore. Slower than a car, but carrying the weight of a moving mountain. When it struck buildings, they didn't just flood, they disintegrated. In Banda Aceh, Indonesia, closest to the earthquake's epicenter, photographer Rain Skullerud arrived a week after the disaster. I spent 45 days there living in a tent. By the time I left, they were still pulling out 1,000 bodies a day. He described children's eyes that had become the eyes of adults, sad eyes, in just one day. The numbers are almost incomprehensible. 230,000 people dead across 17 countries, 1.7 million people displaced, economic losses of $13 billion. Entire coastal communities that had existed for centuries were simply gone. Now imagine that same level 5 energy hitting Florida. The entire southern portion of the state would be underwater. Miami, Fort Lauderdale, the Keys, completely submerged. The wave would surge up the coast, flooding Tampa Bay, reaching inland for dozens of miles. We're talking about permanent geographical changes. South Beach, gone. The Everglades, a temporary inland sea. Millions of people would need to evacuate, and many coastal areas would never be rebuilt. This is the level where we stop talking about rebuilding and start talking about relocating entire populations. Level 6, the mega tsunami. Waves over 500 feet high. This is where we leave the realm of human experience and enter geological timescales. July 9th, 1958, Howard Ulrich and his 7-year-old son Sonny were anchored in their fishing boat, the Edry, in the peaceful waters of Lituya Bay, Alaska. It was around 10:15 p.m., and the Alaskan summer twilight was just beginning to fade. We came into Lituya Bay about 8 o'clock in the evening, Howard later told the BBC. They'd anchored in a small cove on the southern side of the bay, had dinner, and Sonny had fallen asleep. Then the earthquake hit. Howard jolted awake to violent shaking that rocked his boat like a toy. He rushed to the deck and witnessed something that shouldn't exist. The mountains themselves were writhing and twisting. Clouds of snow were flying around the peaks as if the earth was having a seizure. But then he saw it. What I observed was like an atomic explosion, Howard later said. It looked like just a big wall of water. A magnitude 7.8 earthquake had triggered the largest landslide in recorded history. 40 million cubic yards of rock and ice, the equivalent of 100 Golden Gate bridges, crashed 3,000 feet straight down into the bay. The impact created a wave 1,720 feet high, taller than the Empire State Building, higher than the Willis Tower, a moving mountain of water that stripped every tree, every piece of vegetation, every sign of life, from the shoreline up to that incredible height. Howard watched this impossible wave racing toward them at over 100 miles per hour. He had maybe 2 or 3 minutes before it reached their position. Suddenly he realized he had to move, according to eyewitness accounts. Cursing himself for delaying, he got a life jacket on Sonny, then somehow got the engine going, but he was unable to heave the anchor in time. The anchor chain was stuck. They were trapped. Howard grabbed his radio microphone and shouted,
"Mayday, this is the Edry in Lituya Bay. All hell has broken loose in here. I think we've had it. Goodbye."
Then the wave hit. By the time it reached the Ulrich's position, it was still 150 feet high, a 15-story wall of water moving faster than most cars on a highway. The anchor chain snapped like a string, and the Edry was lifted completely out of the water. "You're looking at death," Howard later said, and this was exactly my first thought. Somehow, impossibly, they surfed the wave. Howard looked down and saw treetops beneath the hull of his boat. They were sailing through the air above what had been dry land moments before. Then the wave pulled them back out to sea, depositing them in the churning but survivable waters of the bay. 2 people on another fishing boat weren't so lucky. They were swept out to sea and never seen again. But even the Lituya Bay mega tsunami pales in comparison to the ultimate Level 6 event. The Chicxulub asteroid impact 66 million years ago. A 6-mile-wide asteroid slammed into the shallow seas near Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula with the force of 5 billion Hiroshima bombs. The impact created mile-high waves that scoured the seafloor thousands of miles away and carried enough energy to disturb sediments in ocean caissons halfway around the globe. Recent computer modeling shows this tsunami was 30,000 times more energetic than the 2004 Indian Ocean disaster. Close to the impact site, waves reached 300 feet high, but the destruction wasn't limited to the impact zone. The tsunami propagated globally, creating massive waves that struck coastlines around the world. This is what killed the dinosaurs. Not just the asteroid impact itself, but the series of catastrophes it triggered. Massive tsunamis, global wildfires, years of darkness as debris blotted out the sun. If a Chicxulub-size asteroid hit today's oceans, several U.S. states would simply disappear. The entire eastern seaboard could be underwater within hours. Global supply chains would collapse. Coastal cities from New York to Tokyo would cease to exist. We're talking about the potential end of human civilization as we know it. So there you have it, the 6 levels of tsunami, from gentle harbor oscillations that barely register on instruments, all the way up to civilization-ending waves that can literally reshape continents. Level 1, 6 inches to 2 feet, harbor disturbances. Level 2, 3 to 6 feet, marina destruction. Level 3, 6 to 15 feet, coastal flooding. Level 4, 15 to 50 feet, regional catastrophes. Level 5, 50 to 167 feet, civilizational threats. Level 6, 500 feet and beyond, extinction events. The scale is almost incomprehensible, but here's the thing that gives me some comfort. 78% of all tsunamis occur in the Pacific's Ring of Fire, and we now have warning systems that can detect them within minutes of their formation. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center monitors seismic activity 24/7, and computer models can predict wave arrival times with incredible accuracy. As for asteroids, well, NASA and other space agencies are actively tracking potentially hazardous objects. The good news is that Chicxulub-size impacts happen maybe once every 100 million years. The bad news is that smaller impacts that could still generate devastating tsunamis happen much more frequently. Which level surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see more videos about extreme weather events that could reshape our world, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell.